Hi everyone, Dave here on this Sunday afternoon. I'm going to do a bit of try and do a bit of an analysis today. I'll tell you what on in a minute, but in the meantime, I'm just negotiating some really treacherous, slippy mud on the side of the canal. I just nearly went into the canal a minute ago, so that'd be funny, wouldn't it? A comedic moment if I just go arse over tit into the canal. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Anyway, so what I want to talk about is I'm going to use as a focal point a video on Dan Aston Gregory's channel. So I'm going to link to that video below, and it's the one where he talks to Matthias Desmet, the Belgian psychologist, about mass formation psychosis. It's one of the best pieces of content relating to this whole charade in the last 2 years that I've seen, as well as I'm particularly intrigued and fascinated by what he says, because as you know, I'm very interested in how societies rise and fall and how they can be gripped by psychic epidemics. So definitely recommend you watch it. I'm sure many of you already have, but like I say, I want to do my own little take on the numbers that he uses. Really treacherous alongside here, so I hope you can hear me as well. It's quite windy, so I'll shout. Right, so mass formation psychosis, the basic premise that Matthias Desmet, I think he's called, says is that when totalitarianism threatens and then strikes, and we know all about that, although I'd say we're still in the early stages of it in England, and that we have managed to not turn it round, but we've managed to halt its progress in this country. Anyway, he says 30% of people will just believe anything and will fall deep into the grip of the hypnosis. He says that 30% of people will see through it and will ask questions and will then start speaking out against what they see are lies, and that 40%, the middle 40% of people don't necessarily believe what they're being told, but they go along with it anyway. So yeah, I agree with 100% agree with that. That's what happens. People are divided into those three categories. We saw it at the start and we can continue to see it now. However, how I want to differ is with those figures, because I mean, this is just my perception. So I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, and of course, you know, we're all going to have our own individual takes on this, and that's why I'm intrigued to find out what you think and where you would say the percentages are and how they've changed. In my opinion, let's go back to February, March 2020. I'm walking really slowly here. Now, I don't think there were 30% of people who were questioning it at that point. I'd say 1% or less, right at the start, and because I was one of those. So I don't know whether that 30% of people who were curious and open-minded and questioning and challenging, whether that's accurate, whether that was really the case at the start, because from what I could see, over 99% of people were fearful. They did do what they were asked to do. They did participate in the lockdowns. They were very obedient, not 30%. However, within 1 to 2 weeks, certainly within 5 to 6 weeks, I would say a significantly larger number of people then were questioning. But I still wouldn't put it at 30%. I'd say maybe 10%, and I was one of those 10%. Now, also, the interesting thing is that the 30% of, so what does that mean? That means that the 30% of people that he says are that buy into the narrative. Yeah, I think that was 99%. However, where are we right now? Well, I think that we're still not at the 30% of people who are actively challenging and speaking out. In fact, I don't think we're anywhere near it. I think that might be between 10 and 20%, which is significant. But I also don't think the 30% are in the grip of mass hypnosis still. So that 99% at the start of people who were in the grip of mass hypnosis, who were brainwashed, who were indoctrinated, I think that figure now is as low as, I don't know, let's say, I reckon maybe about 10 to 15%, nowhere near 30%. This, as I say, is my own personal interpretation. So as things stand right now, 2 years into this, I think that there are a significantly fewer people than 30% who are brainwashed, and quite significantly fewer people who are actively speaking out. But I think there are more speaking out. Maybe, well, it might be about the same. It might be like 15% on both sides there. However, so what does that leave us? 70%? I think 70% of people now are in the middle. And here's the crucial take for me. Those 70% of people, they're not just going along with it, even though they think it might be wrong or they have questions. I think if you imagine like a ruler, say, one of those wooden rulers, and say that people like us who've been questioning are on the right hand side and the brainwashed ones are on the left. I think the middle people in the 70% are are gravitating quite quickly towards us. And they're not going along. So it's not a case of they're going along with it, even though they know it's wrong, because a lot of them are in cognitive dissonance. A lot of them are not going along with many of the different measures. A lot of them are asking questions, but they're not actively speaking out. They're not necessarily engaging in like civil disobedience in quite an overt way. But they are starting to make a difference, because they are listening, they're starting to engage in conversation, they're ignoring many of the rules, and they've opened their minds up. So I think those figures in this country, 30, 40, 30, I think now are 15, 70 and 15, maybe 15 to 20% actually of people now. So maybe there's slightly more of us who are actively trying to stop this than that are completely brainwashed, which obviously is a good thing. Now, what does this mean? I think it means that we're in a better place than if 30, 40, 30 are the percentages, classical kind of like percentages of previous totalitarian regimes. I think it means that in this country, we're further ahead at this stage in terms of waking people up than would classically be the case. Let me say again, this is just my take, my perception, and please do let me know whether you agree or disagree. Is it something particular to the British, to the English? I don't know. As a general point, I do think we're further ahead now on the journey from tyranny to freedom than I thought we would be. That's my honest take. Now, the other point that I'm fascinated in is, let's go back to, again, my insight is that 99% of people were brainwashed at the start, including me, to an extent. Well, how come so many people, a significant percentage of people, managed to quickly extricate themselves from that? What was that all about? I'm fascinated by that. How come, as the years have gone by now, that more and more people have slowly woken up and are slowly coming around? What was the trigger for them? And why do so many fall deeper into the psychosis? And the other point is why are some people clearly more susceptible to being mind controlled, to being indoctrinated and conditioned than others? That fascinates me, and I'm going to have to think a lot more about this. I mean, I have some theories, and they touched on it in the podcast below, and like I say, please watch it. It is absolutely fascinating the way he explains it. They touch on this and come up with some hypotheses themselves, but obviously the need to conform is quite a powerful motivation for a lot of people. But I think for some people it is integral to their existence, and that to not conform is the scariest thing possible for them. So to conform, no matter what they are conforming to, gives us a security blanket, a sense of meaning and purpose, sense of belonging. So there's that. I think there's something going on with how strong a character is. And the older I get, the more I realise that strength of character relates primarily to how introspective one is. And I think Dan Aston Gregory touched on this point, and he said about, is it something to do with emotional intelligence? And I think the Belgian psychologist kind of disagreed with him, whereas I would entertain that idea, certainly, because emotional intelligence, introspectiveness, self-awareness, self-reflection, examining one's own beliefs is strength of character, because you make yourself vulnerable. You make yourself vulnerable to being wrong, for one. You make yourself vulnerable to having to change your whole outlook or adapt your whole outlook. You know, so emotional intelligence stroke introspection is strength of character. Could it be some people are just stronger characters than others? Now, I mean, that's quite a general observation. Doesn't really have, you know, I need to think it through more. So is there that? Now, there are some other characteristics as well. I can see with 100% certainty that in this country, the people who voted Remain for Brexit are more susceptible to believe in the narrative. And I find that fascinating as well. So there's something going on with regard to people who think that big state, big government, technocratic kind of overseeing of society is a good thing, against those who don't. People who've been taking I'm not going to call it the easy route through life, but use the template of life in modern Western civilization. Well, what's that? Well, it's to go to school, go to uni, get your qualifications, get a job, get promotion, scrabble around in the dirt, fighting against your colleagues for a promotion, all that, you know, the rat race. Well, it's the mainstream approach, the tried and tested approach that is not particularly difficult if you're willing to just go along with other people's values, your organisation's values, you know, as long as you're happy to trade. I was teetering along the edge of the canal here. As long as you're happy to trade, you know, your own pursuit of deep meaning for a regular salary and a regular, you know, regular income, your guaranteed holidays, your pension, etc., against the people who think, no, I'm going to take a different approach to life. I'm maybe going to set up my own business. You know, I'm going to travel the world. I'm going to do what I do. I'm going to get my voice out there, try and positively influence. I'm going to make myself vulnerable, and that takes strength of character to do that. So certainly something relating to strength of character and a willingness to embrace the less worn path. That's a factor as well. So yeah, I need to think these theories through more deeply, and I'm sure it's going to take probably years to figure this out. But there's some of the there are people who are just more susceptible to, and another theory I think is who do we trust and why? You know, I know there are people who think I'm a crank, and there are others. They say, we love your streams of awareness, we love how articulate you are, we love how, you know, you put your point across in an intelligent, open-minded way. Why is it that a lot of people, I mean, this is attached some way to the general, you know, degradation of society and the fact that we're not very enlightened, although things are changing now. Why is it that many people will only entertain information if it's from considering information and processing information, thus, you know, allowing it to change their perspective, if it's from a particular person or a particular organisation or a particular source? Why do people trust certain individuals over others? Now, what I've learned is that yes, it's good to be skeptical, but it's also good to be open-minded, and it's certainly good to associate with people who you completely disagree with, listen to their opinion, read. You know, for example, I absolutely despise The Guardian. I think it's despicable. I think it's vile. It's disgusting. I hate it. I hate everything it stands for. But I do read it, because every now and again I think, yeah, I've just learned something there. That's good, because that's kind of like challenged my take on something. Now, I think that, again, those who are part of this kind of awakening movement, who are actually trying to cultivate a better society and stop totalitarian in its tracks, I think the more open-minded, and again it relates to emotional intelligence, because it's being able to entertain different views, admit that yeah, you've probably won the argument there, or just allowing yourself to be able to reflect and think, right, I think I might need to adapt my view of this situation or of the world based on this new information that I've received. So anyway, there's my take. Of this has nearly ran out. I've only got 1 more minute left before my phone cuts off here, so I'm going to leave it there. I'll probably do more on this subject, but do let me know what you think of what I've said, those percentages and the theories about why are some more susceptible to brainwashing than others. And yeah, share this with anybody that you think would benefit. Don't forget to subscribe and enjoy the rest of the day, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.